Welcome to the Marinade, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. Each episode, we welcome musicians, actors, comedians, authors, visual artists, filmmakers, anyone who creates art to talk about how and why we make stuff. This is episode 217, and our guest is India Ramey. India is a singer and songwriter based in Nashville, Tennessee, whose latest record, Villain Era, is a middle finger to the musical status quo, told through the sonic lens of a spaghetti western. Yeah, I know. It's fucking rad. She told her producer, Eric Corne, she wanted the album to sound like Johnny Cash and Loretta Lynn had risen from the grave to score a Quentin Tarantino film. It's an incredibly cool concept, and they knocked it out of the park. If you haven't listened to Villain Era, give it a spin just as soon as you finish this conversation. I've wanted to have India on the show for a long time, and I am so excited to bring you my conversation with India Ramey. You're okay, bud. I know. That worked. Just a minute. Hey, India.
I'm so sorry. I'm like post-workout and I was running about 10 minutes behind. I'm sorry.
It's all good. This has been one of those mornings where I feel like it's one thing after another, and I haven't been able to catch my breath. So, Bubba, hey, leave it.
Same. So I'm glad we're at least able to relate.
Yeah, it gave me a chance to catch my breath, so no sweat at all.
Okay.
Thank you for doing this. I'm really excited to talk with you.
Thank you for having me.
I've just been devouring your record, Villain Era, and it's so wonderful. It's one of my favorites of the year, and I'm just incredibly excited that it's out there in the world and that I get a chance to pick your brain about it. So congratulations on this beautiful record, first of all.
Thank you so much.
All right, so I was like doing research for this has been fun because your life seems fascinating to me. And I think because there are also some parallels I feel like to my own life that I want to unpack and some things that I think I've been processing lately that we'll be able to relate on. But one of the things that I found really interesting is your background, like the depth of your background as a sort of performer and the fact that you are trained as a dancer. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like the interplay between the creative processes. Like you have these different outlets, right? And like if the dancing, I lost you here. Hold on, sorry.
No problem. You know Mercury's retrograde, right?
I was just gonna say, are we retrograding? Are we in the Gatorade?
We got the Gatorade in the microwave.
If we're in that microwave Gatorade, we're microwaving that Gatorade. No wonder. All right, let me just ask that question again. So
no problem.
The idea of like, because specifically with dance for you is ballet, right?
Yeah, very serious ballet. Like I was at a fine arts high school in Birmingham, Alabama, and the school was affiliated with the Alabama Ballet. So we performed and rehearsed and danced and starred in Alabama Ballet productions.
Okay, that's a really intense world. And like, so I wonder how has that, if at all, impacted your creative process as a songwriter, as a performer?
Well, I think it makes me really disciplined and it makes me like kind of obsessive. I think the obsession comes from lots of different facets of my life, but it does make me focused and perfection oriented. And I think, like having been a dancer for that many years and for that many hours a day, I mean, at the least on a weekday, at the least, I danced like 6 hours a day. And then it was, much more than that when we were working on an actual production. So I think that just having been immersed that much in movement and music, dance is the embodiment of music. So I think that as a songwriter, um, that's like whenever I'm writing a song, it sort of all happens at once. Like the melody, the cadence, the lyrics sort of all become one together. And I don't know, like I feel like maybe having been a dancer, it helps me connect uh, with my body to the music.
Oh, incredible. Oh, that's again a very intensive program, a huge part of your life. Are you able to find, so like I know for me, growing up, baseball was my equivalent. Like that was the thing
Hmm.
that I spent so much time on. And then, the thing about baseball is that eventually for everybody it goes away, right? Like your career ends. And
Yeah.
um so like do you still scratch that itch? Do you still dance? Do you have an outlet for that?
No, I actually don't. I mean, I did for a while. I kept it up until my mid 20s, but there was also like I got a lot of benefits from ballet, but I also had got a lot of trauma
Mm,
from ballet. Our main our artistic director and her husband were very abusive. Um, her husband was kind of a pervert,
yeah.
and he made comments about our bodies when we were 13, 14 years old that were inappropriate. And um, there was a lot of even aside from that, there was a lot of mental, like, mind games that the two of them would play with our very um, vulnerable minds. As we were children. So I kind of like, I mean, a couple of years ago, I threw out all of my toe shoes, all of my tights. Like they had been sitting in a bag, like I was going to go to class at some point. And I was
Mm.
like, I'm in my 40s, and I'm probably not going to go back to ballet class. So I generally don't gravitate towards it anymore. Like I don't want to watch videos of ballet dancers or anything like that. Like I kind of like say, that's a point in a time in my life that is no longer active.
Um, yeah, it's just it continually I work with kids. I'm a middle school teacher, and like
Mm-hmm.
I think thankfully haven't experienced a lot of people in those kinds of positions that I know of, at least abusing their power in that way and being perverted and gross.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, collectively as a society, we're learning that abhorrent behavior is much more common than I think most people realize. And it's tough to talk about, but I do think shining a light on it is important because, like, I think I have been up until the last few years, up until, the president's implicated in these things and so forth, that
Right.
like I've been pretty ignorant to it, to how
Mm-hmm.
widespread that kind of abuse is, and it breaks my fucking heart. But I guess as difficult as it is to discuss, I'm glad that there's like some sort of light being shined on it. Just I hated that you had to go through that. I'm glad that there is some conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, abuse is abuse, but like it's so hard whenever you like. I know that I didn't get even the worst of it. There were other girls in the dance department that were a little bit older than me that received a lot more overt abuse from him,
Hmm.
and his wife, the artistic director, was very complicit in it all. So like I feel fortunate that he didn't favor me.
Mm,
Which is crazy. But the
yeah.
problem was, I'm a younger Gen Xer, and that was sort of like the times that we were in. Adults, even the good adults in our lives, were not very involved in our lives.
Mm,
And so like whenever you would be in a situation like that at school or at dance or whatever, it really didn't even occur to you to tell anybody that it was
yeah.
going on, because number one, they're all working, they're too busy, they don't care. And number two, like if you did tell, it would get minimized. And so
Hmm.
we just all sort of like coped with it the best that we could. And, humor is one of the best trauma responses ever. So we would all just make jokes about what a dirty old man he was. But it's not until later, when you graduate from that and you get away from it, that you realize like how incredibly damaging it was. Um, but, I mean, both of them are not in this world anymore. So it's that much safer.
Good. Yeah. I'm also a trailing Gen Xer. I was born in 1980,
Hmm.
and one of the things that's been not difficult. I don't know if it's difficult or not. This is something I want to unpack right now with you.
Hmm.
Is one of the things that one of the revelations I've had as I hit middle age and navigate middle age and become like a mentor to younger people, people in their 20s, whether it's in a creative capacity or it's in, my day job as a teacher, helping young teachers learn and grow. I look back on the adults in my life, and this isn't a knock necessarily on them. It's just an observation.
Hmm.
And like, I just think we grew up with a dearth of leadership. There was just like people, no one really seemed to know what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah.
No one was like the morality of these people. Like they aren't people that I look back on now. And I put way too much stock in what they had to say. I really followed them. I was very coachable. I listened to the adults in my life.
Me
And I
too.
look back on them now and I'm like, man, I know nobody's ever got it figured out. That's part of life, right? That's just part of like how challenging life is. But at the same time, I feel like the especially the male figures in my life growing up, the adults, just weren't that interesting of people. They weren't that
Yeah.
complex. you know, they were suppressing a bunch of shit and it came out sideways, as Travis Meadows might say, like it came out negatively. And I wonder
Yeah.
if you had a similar experience, and then like how we process that, as at a stage in life where like there are people looking to me for leadership because I do have a certain life experience, right? And I'm trying to
Yeah.
be way better than those adults.
Yeah. I think like, I don't know. I think that the adults in our lives during that time were, they weren't allowed to be empathetic, to be multidimensional, by their parents. Cause their parents, the greatest generation they were a war era generation. And it was just like, put your nose to the grindstone, buckle down and get the job done and take care of business and take care of your family. And you don't complain about it and you don't have feelings about it. And so, like, I mean, each generation is a reflection of the one before. And I like the thing that I've learned in therapy is, it doesn't really serve me to be angry necessarily about the adults that I experienced in my life in a young age,
Mm.
um, or to be resentful. It is incumbent upon me, however, to undo the damage that they did and to acknowledge the damage that they did. And that's the work. Like that is the where the work is, where you say, all right, these people really fucked me up. And I'm going to start doing the work of unfucking myself.
Yeah, 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 yeah. How's that going?
It's been interesting.
I was
it's
thinking,
going it's going better than I thought it was. I mean, I've been in therapy for going on 5 years now,
uh-huh.
and
Good.
and I can say full throated that I am a completely different person than I was before I started therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and in the best way. So um, I highly recommend it. It helps.
Yeah, same. I haven't seen my therapist in months, and I was just thinking about it this morning. I was this morning I was going through like the most intense bout of anxiety with a dash of depression that I felt in a long time. I've been feeling really good lately, everything's been
Mhm.
going well and like haven't been spiraling at all. I've been focused on the good stuff and taking care of myself. It's been great. But this morning, sometimes it hits you for whatever
Yep.
reason, and it hit me so hard this morning. I was really thankful for the tools I've learned in therapy. And it reminded me that I've got to get a hold of my therapist and get back in a regular routine.
Hmm.
Because it's easy. I think it's like anything else. Like what I've learned with therapy, and I really didn't think about this until lately because from 2017 until like November of last year, I was consistently every 2 weeks in therapy. I barely took any time off from that. Maybe once a month if like things were going really well and I was busy and I didn't have, I didn't want to make the time. But
Hmm.
this is the longest stretch since 2017 that I haven't been in therapy regularly. And it's just like anything else, like anything that's good for you, right? If you're exercising 4 to 5 times a week, you crave exercising 4 or 5 times a week, And not, if you're eating healthy and not drinking and all those good things, you don't want to eat chicken wings, or I don't at
Yeah.
least, you know what I mean? Like, and I think
Yeah.
therapy is the same way, and it has changed my life. Like, if I didn't have those tools this morning, I would have had a panic attack,
Yeah.
and it would have derailed the whole day.
Yeah.
Maybe it might have ended up in the emergency room,
Yeah.
for
I've been totally been there. Way too many times.
yeah. I might end up right back at urgent care for them to do all the tests on me and be like, "You're fine."
Yeah. Yeah. Be like, are you sure nothing's changed from my last EKG 2 months
Mhm.
ago?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So that's awesome. Glad you found the therapy and I'm glad that it's working for you. Okay, I feel like all of this is a good jumping off point to talk about villain era because the themes on the record, and then even the blurb on the back talks about you say welcome to my villain era is me saying I'm not going to suffer fools anymore. I'm not
Yeah.
compromising anymore. If my boundaries offend you, I'll happily play the villain in that story. Fuck yeah, first of all, but also like um can you expound on that and just sort of tell us like how you came to that set of themes on this record and like how you got to that place creatively?
Yeah. I mean, a few years ago, I had to part ways with someone that I had been working with. And because the relationship had just, I had realized that it had become really codependent and really toxic. And I wasn't growing, personally or professionally. Um, and I had to put a boundary down and say, I don't think this is working. And that person became a completely different person. I didn't know, like, I didn't know that that dark part was in there.
Mm.
And then immediately the smear campaign started, like I was hearing from mutual people that we knew, mutual friends that I was being painted as this like narcissist, egomaniac person, which is it's just really funny to me that that anybody would buy that. And
Yeah.
thankfully nobody did. But I that it was the first time in my life that I had really just said, no, I'm not gonna play the game anymore. I'm not going to placate you. I'm not going to tell you just what you want to hear because it's easier. I stood up for myself, and it's really scary doing that when you're not used to it because um, when you're doing that with somebody who is dependent on you not doing that, their reaction is very hard to predict and usually pretty toxic and pretty awful, and you get painted as this villain, as the bad guy because you said no to me. Because people like that are really insecure and they can't handle rejection. They can't handle no.
Mm.
So I realized I was like, if I'm going to go through life advocating for myself, that I'm going to have to be prepared to be made out to be a bad guy sometimes.
Mm.
Um, and that's really hard. Like
So hard.
I honestly, I don't even know how good I am at it right now, but
Mhm.
it's a knowing that I can't unlearn. I can't unknow it now.
Yeah.
And I have to keep it with me. I have to keep that knowing that I have to be prepared to step into the villain role, it if it means protecting my peace.
Mm. I kudos to you. That I know for me, like I have come to grips with the fact that I do crave approval more than I wanted to admit for most of my life. I think for
Hmm.
most of my life, I thought kind of like if you don't like me, that's a you problem. Um, and I think I've Bucket. Hey, Bubba. Hey, leave it. Bucket. Hey, come here.
It's dog.
What are you doing? Um, it's his gotcha day, and I've been like extra spoiling him today, and he's being a total brat about it.
He's
And
feeling it.
yes, he deserves it, but also I'm trying to get shit done, buddy. Come here. Come here. I know Dad has enabled this behavior. But yeah, I think I do crave more than I'm or seek out at least more than I was willing to admit for a long time people's approval. And so I don't like being the villain. Unless somebody has truly wronged me. Like it and I think maybe that sounds like you had to come to the realization that this particular person, once you made that move, then then, when they're starting to talk shit, that makes it a little easier to be the villain for me at least.
Oh yeah, yeah. When somebody starts to show their ass, it's so much easier to go, "Hey, whoa," But like if they're if they're a little bit more covert about it,
Uh-huh.
um, and you're like, "Hey, this isn't working for me anymore," and then then they unravel, and then all of that toxicity just comes oozing out. You're just like, "Whoa!" And I realized that because of my childhood trauma and because of my teenage trauma and the dance program. I mean, talk about seeking people's approval.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that every relationship, every interaction that I was in, my entire like mode of operation was to keep people from freaking out on me and to keep people from yelling at me and to keep people from being mad at me. And it's just like it's hardwired like into my spinal cord.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the hardest thing to deprogram.
Yeah. Okay. Have you like when you look back on your creative career, I mean, from ballet and art school through, all of your wonderful records, and now villain era. Um, are there lessons? Let me back up for a second because I have a selfish motivation for asking this question to some extent, which is I'm about to release my debut EP of my songs, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited. I'm really proud of it. I think it sounds great. Sending off to get mastered tonight. And um, I have kept as a commentator, journalist, I have kept the industry, so to speak, and even just creative relationships when it comes to songwriting and recording, kind of at an arm's length.
Hmm.
But now I'm taking it a lot more seriously. I'm playing more shows. My record's coming out. I'm
Good.
collaborating with people, And I wonder if you like look back and have, if there are lessons that you've learned about sort of who you've chosen to work with and how you've gone about navigating sort of the interpersonal part of creating.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the lessons that I've learned is that I need to value myself more. Because I feel like, I've worked with a lot of people that have been wonderful. Like most of the people that I've worked with have been wonderful. Um, but there have just been like a couple that have been toxic and controlling and, made me believe that they were doing me a favor. And that's because I went into that relationship, whether it was somebody in my band or, somebody that I was doing business with. It's because I went into that relationship with the stink of desperation, with I'm lucky to get anybody to work with me, or I'm lucky to get this person to play in my band. And when I look back on it, that's not true. Like not true at all. It was just a lie that I was telling myself because I was insecure and I was not confident in my abilities because I my imposter syndrome was leading me into that relationship. And if I hadn't have had such horrible imposter syndrome, and if I hadn't have had such a negative, image of where I was in my career or what I deserved, then I probably wouldn't have dealt with any of those people. I can think of some people that have been in my band that certainly wouldn't have been in my band.
Okay, that's helpful. That's all really helpful because I mean, we talk about imposter syndrome. Oh, I'm gonna take this bowl from him. I'm sorry, it's driving me crazy. Give me just
No
a second.
problem.
He's worth it. He's the cutest patutist.
Oh yeah, I've got babies too. I've got
Okay.
little 1-year-old cats, and
Uh-huh.
actually surprised that one of them hasn't gotten up here and put their butt like right in the
Oh, it's
camera.
amazing how like he can just lay there comfortably for hours, and as soon as I put these headphones on, he is
Yeah.
like, I want you to pay attention to me. I want you to feed me, give me a treat, like all of the things.
Oh yeah. If I'm
Just
like actually doing something that I need to focus on, that's when my cats are all over me and driving me
yeah.
nuts. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because we talk about imposter syndrome a lot on this show, and it's certainly something that I've worked through quite a bit. And in podcasting, I didn't deal with it much because like when I started, almost nobody was doing what I was doing. So like I didn't know, I didn't have any sort of sense of what good looked like in this. I didn't know. I just was doing it and learning and getting better, and I just felt really good about the feedback I was getting. And so it wasn't like I came into it going, oh wow, I'm not as good as. I mean, I wasn't comparing myself to Terry Gross or something, right? It was like,
Right.
like because there was one Terry Gross, right? But there
Mhm.
are so many talented songwriters, and some of them are my friends, and I get to talk to them all the time. And I think that's a more difficult thing. Music is, for me at least, a more difficult thing to push through the imposter syndrome because, like, any room I'm in, uh, almost every day, these are my friends, right? Like, I'm surrounded by people who are objectively are just further along in their creative journey and their ability than me.
Same.
Um, and so like there is a tendency I know for me to do what it sounds like you might have done a little bit of early on, which is there's a tendency for me to not necessarily value myself as much as I should. Like I feel sometimes weird about even asking to like get paid and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
even at this stage of my career as a songwriter and performer. And that is, it's really helpful to hear that as a lesson, like looking back on it and not just taking whatever, but also being aware of who you're exchanging energy with because music is so intimate too.
Oh yeah.
Like you're so vulnerable and it's such an intimate thing. And if you're giving that energy to people who aren't the best people or who don't have great habits or who don't necessarily have your best interests in mind or the collective best interests in mind, that could be really draining and stifling.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's extremely draining and it drains your creativity. You
Hmm.
can't create anything if you're ruminating on how you're gonna keep from this person getting upset or this person coming up and ruining your gig again because they're insisting that they're a great pedal steel player and they've never really played pedal steel until last week. True
Hmm.
story. Yeah. Stuff like you, it's when you realize that you've been putting all of that effort into trying to control somebody's reaction to something or trying to, just keep somebody from being a total asshole. Um, it's drained everything that you've brought to the table that makes you on that stage in the first place or
Uh-huh.
makes you in that room in the first place. And so, you know, what I'm trying to do, I'm definitely not like, I'm definitely not in the position where I can give a master class on any of this, but what I'm
Hmm.
trying to do is be true to my process, my music, my creativity, and my peace. And I want to be able to be like a mama bear and protect it from
Mm.
anybody that will drain it, because that's where my joy is. My joy is in the creation of the music, and my joy is in those moments in my life where I do feel at peace, where I do feel safe. And if you have somebody in your circle, or in your band or in your business or whatever, that is not a safe person for you, then that joy gets diminished.
Mm. Another aspect of your life that parallels mine would be uh, law school.
Mm.
And I wonder for you, I think a lot about specifically that time. I worked as a law clerk for like a year and a half and eventually got out of the law pretty quickly, actually, and went back to teaching, public school teaching, which is what I'm kind of meant to do, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but I reflect quite a bit on that time, right? It's so time intensive and emotionally draining and all the things law school can be.
Hmm.
Um, do you feel like there are any that experience, working in the law, earning a law degree, do you think any of that informs your creative process now?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said that legal writing
Uh-huh.
has benefited my songwriting, because um, it's crazy that how similar it is, because
Mm-hmm.
you have an issue, right, whenever you're doing legal writing, like whatever the issue is in the case. And in songwriting, you have like whatever that concept is, it's whatever point you're trying to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in legal writing, you take that issue and you bounce it off of whatever the rule of law is, and you you put it together like a puzzle in your analysis, and then you make your point. And usually
Mm-hmm.
your point is the point in the exercise is to make your point briefly, very
Mm-hmm.
quickly, in a small amount of time. And songwriting is really similar. Like, I feel like songwriting is like a puzzle. It's a literal word puzzle, where you are finding just the right words in just the right moment to drive that point home in 5 minutes or less. So yeah, I definitely think having been a legal writer is super beneficial to my songwriting.
Could not relate more to something that anyone has said on this show. Like, I think one of the most humbling things about law school is I got to law school thinking I was a pretty good writer.
Oh
And
yeah.
like the very first thing I wrote was just torn apart by my professor.
Yep.
You know?
Everybody, because it's a different way of writing.
Yep.
It's a very linear way of writing.
Uh-huh.
But people don't realize how creative legal writing is.
Mm-hmm.
All writing is creative. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, I know, like, I can pick up, I'm a very empathetic person, and I can pick up on when people are like, oh, like, you're a lawyer, like, as if I don't belong in music because I've been a lawyer before. And I'm like, you don't even, like, you actually know nothing about this. You have no idea how
Mm-hmm.
creative being a lawyer is. Like, that's what you're doing all day, every day, is being creative. Because, I mean, some of your cases are absolute losers, and you got to get real creative to
Yeah,
find an angle where you might be
yeah,
able
yeah.
to
Uh-huh.
win.
Well, there's a perseverance to it too that I think as a songwriter comes in really handy. I think one of the things about law school that was really helpful for me, I've always been someone who doesn't give up very easily, but I think, it pushed me intellectually and it pushed me discipline wise in a way that I hadn't
Yeah.
really, been pushed before, because it's not a physical thing. It's not like, with baseball, I would work my ass off. Cross country, I would work my ass off. I'd put in more hours than anybody. But that's mental, but it's also a lot of just, conditioning your body and taking care of your body. Whereas, I mean, studying for the bar exam, you're just sitting for hours.
8 hours a day, baby.
It's crazy. It's
Yep.
crazy. And that's when I started writing songs, actually, to procrastinate, studying for
Mm.
the bar exam is when I started. That's the
That's a
truth.
good way to procrastinate.
Yeah, yeah, because you're already, your brain's firing a million miles an hour, and then you're
Yeah.
reading all these fact patterns. That's what happened to me. My song "Brenton Butler," which will be on my debut EP,
Mhm.
um, is based on the true story of a kid who was wrongly accused of murder in Jacksonville in the year 2000, and we watched a documentary called Murder on a Sunday Morning about it in my criminal procedure class.
Uh-huh.
And then the public defenders, these heroic public defenders, helped him get acquitted, and they came to my class and spoke to my class after we had like watched this documentary. And it was just so inspiring, right? Like this kid who was
Yeah.
just a black kid walking down the street in Jacksonville in the year 2000, didn't look anything like the killer, just classic police racism.
Ugh.
And just like the unfortunately the cliche of it, right? But thankfully, you had these incredible public defenders, and I was just sitting there, consuming all of this, and I was like, this, all of this lends itself so naturally to song, right?
Yeah.
And then getting those words on the page. I love what you were saying about sort of there's like an economy of words that you have to write songs well, and there's an economy of words that you have to write legally well.
Right.
And but you still got to be smart, right? It's still got to be, it's got to be interesting, it's got to be smart, but it's got to be to the point. And yes, those are lessons I took away for sure.
Yeah, it has to be clever. Like
Hmm.
there are a lot of different ways to say the same thing. And this is why like sometimes co-writes are a little bit of a challenge for me. Because sometimes like people come to co-writes with different songwriting processes, right? And not one is better than the other. Like I'm not
Hmm.
saying that my process is the best, but there are a lot of co-writes that I've been in where people are just like stream of consciousness, and they'll come up with something and it rhymes and it works, and they're like, run it, like that's the first verse, next verse. And but I think because of my analytical brain from being a lawyer, I'm always like, but wait, isn't there a better way to say this? Can't
Hmm.
we find a better way to say this? Because what I'm going for is when that lyric locks, I'm going for the level of satisfaction that I get for how cleverly it locks.
Hmm.
I like for it to just be tied up in a beautiful, nice little bow where I just get that I get a bigger dopamine hit for with it.
Hmm.
So there's that too. Like songwriting, that's where the joy comes from, right? Like you actually get a brain chemical hit when you know you've written a good one, or when a lyric locks in, or where you know that you followed that lyric like perfectly seamlessly through the whole song. And once again, that's why I'm trying to be so protective of that space, because that's I mean like literal brain chemicals that I need are there. And when folks are fucking it up for me, I can't get that brain chemical.
Okay, so what is that? Can you take us a little more like into the mechanics of that process for you, the writing process? What does it look like? Do you sit down with a blank page? You said, because you mentioned earlier that the music and the lyrics kind of come together. Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, so I'll get like an idea for a song, like it'll be like a phrase or a concept or something, and I'll kind of like mull over it for a minute and think like, how what does that sound like? But like, what would be the hook?
Mm,
Um, like I had the idea for Nobody's Coming,
mm-hmm,
and that was the only thing that I had, because it was this this idea that when you're in the depths, when you're going through a really, really hard time, you might have a support system, you might have a therapist, you might have, a doctor or whatever, but no one person is going to come in and save you from whatever you're going through.
yeah.
And you're the only person that can do that. You're the only person that can, drag yourself out of that quicksand bog that you're in. And so I was like, okay, nobody's coming. And then I just sat down for a minute and wrote. I like to make a word bank, and I
Mm.
wrote down a lot of words that came to mind that were visual, like quicksand, that were good, that metaphors like that. And and then I, and then I just kind of like, then I decide like, is this going to be in a minor key? Is this going to be up tempo? Is this going to be slow? And then I start writing, and then the melody comes in, and the cadence of the words start to come in. Like first line, there was no one around when the bottom fell out. And it just sort
Mm.
of sang itself in my head, like there was no one around when the bottom fell out. And then,
Mm-hmm.
like, once I get that first line of melody, the rest of it just kind of, I don't know, it feels like it writes itself almost.
God, that's all so helpful. That's all so helpful. Because I think there's
Word
some time.
banks, word
That's
banks, man, they're
I've
so
never
good.
used that. Yeah, it almost sounds a little bit like what Jeff Tweedy does, but not quite. Like
Mhm.
he's a little more abstract in his writing, and you're a fucking storyteller. Like you tell such vivid stories. Like I get so invested in these characters,
Yeah.
and that idea of a word bank, I don't know why I've never thought of it, but no one's ever mentioned that. Like, what a fantastic way to go about it, to have that pool to pull from.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're stuck or whatever, you can go down there and look at like what words haven't I used, and those words are important. I mean, like a single word can can make you feel a million things,
Yeah.
and a single word can make you see an entire landscape in your mind. And so it it's like a I like to think of it instead of a word bank. I like to think of it as like a treasure chest,
Uh,
because
uh,
words are so powerful. And so you make this little treasure chest down at the bottom of your page, and you just kind of, whatever words are not popping into your head, stream of
yeah.
consciousness, you can go back down there and be like, oh yeah, I like that one. I like, quicksand. That's everything. That's the whole
Mm.
metaphor for the song, and I'm gonna figure out how to work that into that part.
Oh,
Yeah, it's super helpful to me anyway.
yeah. Treasure chest. I love it.
Mhm.
Like even framing it that way makes me want to go dive in and
Yeah.
find some gold nugget that I'm gonna include in the song. I mean, for the
Yeah.
first time in my creative life, and I think part of it is I'm just getting better at writing songs. I think part of the process for me of getting better at it is that I have a lot of unfinished songs now. Whereas
Hmm.
before, I think I would write them and I'd be like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting to certain places in the process and going, okay, this is better than anything I've written up to this point, but also I don't know where to go from here. I think I've raised the bar for myself quite a bit over the last
Sure.
like 2 years, and I've got a couple of unfinished songs. One of which I played at the open mic that I host here, and it went over great. And like,
Great.
but as I played it, I was like, it's not done. It's not done. It needs another verse. I need like
Yeah.
I haven't finished the thought, and I can't figure out where to go. And I think I'm gonna sit down this afternoon and make a treasure chest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've done that too. Like, Dead to Me, uh, one of the songs on the new album, I went through like three or four, maybe more incarnations of that song. Like the finished product of that song sounds nothing like what it started as.
Mm, mm-hmm,
And but I kept going back to it until I had that level of satisfaction
mm-hmm.
that I was going for, where I was like, I love this song now. Like
Mm,
I want to love every one of them. I don't want
yeah.
to just be like, that's a solid song. It should go on the album. Like I want to be like, I love every one of these. I'm so happy with how all of these turned out.
Yeah.
And sometimes that requires putting it down and going back to it. I mean, I think it, like, sometimes I'll write a song in 20 minutes, but sometimes I'll write a song over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It just, and you just kind of have to allow yourself that space for either one of those scenarios to happen.
Yeah, I love it. Has the You recorded this one in LA?
Hmm.
Did did geography and location, especially just like with the Western feel of the whole record, like did geography make any difference in your creative process here?
Well, it did and it didn't. I already had the, I already had an idea for how I wanted the album to sound.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I watch westerns, like old '50s westerns, all the time
Mm-hmm.
because my granddaddy watched them, and I started watching them again during the pandemic, and they made me feel peaceful. They made me feel close to him. So
Mm.
I keep them on a lot, like during the day, and so that really informed a lot of what I wanted this album to sound like and to look like in people's mind's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really serendipitous that Eric Corne came to me and Shyla and asked, did I want to work with him because he's in LA. And it was just, yeah, like it was just coincidence and serendipity that I ended up recording it in California because it needed to sound like California. It needed to sound like Pioneer Town.
Uh-huh. Yeah, oh, I love it. That is my like that the sonically, I mean the songwriting is incredible. Sonically though, it's like that's part of what I'm so drawn to with this record. I fucking fall for that kind of sound. Like,
Me too.
oh my God, like John Doe's solo records, like Dustin Kinsey put out a record a couple years ago that was like a Western country record.
Hmm.
There's just a lot of folks in the last few years who've been making really cool stuff that takes me to, I'm not even, I'm from the South. Like I'm not even
Me
from
too.
out there, you know? Like I'm not,
I know I'm from Alabama.
yeah, right. Yeah, I'm from Kentucky and I grew up in Florida for the most part. Like it's but there's something romantic about the West, and there's something when you set these stories with that sound. I'm so glad you made that decision because it really fucking hits for me.
I love it too. And I like Quentin Tarantino movies, and
Mm.
I wanted I wanted to make a country album that could also be in a Tarantino movie.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And because I love I don't know, like I love how mysterious um a vibe he will set in a movie like Kill Bill. Especially Kill Bill 2 is my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a lot of that too. There was like a lot of Beatrix Kiddo
Mm-hmm.
in this. And I mean really, like, I think the album ended up sounding so good because I this is the first time I ever really had like a super clear idea of what I wanted an album to sound like. And I had the confidence and belief in myself to communicate it to my producer and to the musicians in the room. And
Yeah.
I had a producer that allowed me to do that. Like I would be remiss if I didn't, shout from the rooftops and how understanding and respectful Eric Corne was to me when we made this album. He never made me feel like I didn't know what was talking about. He
Mm.
listened to me when I said, I want the guitars to sound like this. I want the guitars to sound like early 1960s bright Telecaster, twangy, like the more twang, the better. He never lectured me on what he thought instead. He just said, that sounds really cool. Let's do it. Um, and he and all of those wonderful musicians in that room gave me the album that I went to make.
Mm-hmm. What a gift. That's awesome. I mean, it's how it should be, but like also, I know that's not everybody's experience. This is the first time I've recorded my songs. And it took us a while because my producer and I are both busy folks with a lot of plates spinning, but we got it done. And one of the things that he asked for right off the bat was a very similar thing. He asked for me to tell him, what do you want it to sound like? And he's like,
Yeah.
send me a couple of records. And so Like I sent him Springsteen's Nebraska, and I've kind of shot for the moon here. Springsteen's Nebraska, and I sent him Jason Isbell's Foxes in the Snow, and I was
Nice.
like, I want it somewhere in between here, right? Like the
Yeah.
sort of sparseness of Nebraska with like the clarity of Foxes in the Snow, and I just want it like I want my lyrics to really, because that's the thing I'm most proud of. I want the lyrics to really shine. You know, I really want
Yeah.
people to hear what I have to say, and I think he knocked it out of the park. Like it was very inspiring to me, especially as I think about the future of what I want for my own songwriting and recording, to read where you told Eric Corne that you wanted it to sound like this record to sound like Johnny Cash and Loretta Lynn had risen from the grave to score a Quentin Tarantino film.
Yeah.
Couldn't be much clearer than that. Right.
Yeah.
And you nailed it, right? Y'all
Yeah.
nailed it. And um that's awesome. It's really inspiring to me to think about it that way. Because also, music is so hard to describe, right? That's one of the things that's a challenge as a music
Yeah.
journalist, right? Is like trying to find fresh ways to describe these sounds, fresh ways to parse similar, genre wise. I mean, I generally am talking to and about broad umbrella Americana artists, right?
Hmm.
And there are lots of different sounds within that world, that giant umbrella, but it's very difficult to like describe what you're hearing in a way and give and do justice to it, right? So like
Yeah.
that you had that vision and were able to articulate it so clearly is really inspiring to me. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it really was the first time that I hadn't just like handed over a bunch of songs to a producer and said, help me make it out,
Yeah.
um, and that's, I mean, and that's, that's it's another product of leaving your imposter syndrome at the door and
Mm,
asking for what you want as the artist
mm,
and, standing on business and saying like, these are my songs and this is what I want it to sound like.
mm.
And, if you're working with the right people, you don't even have to insist upon it. They just say, okay, you're the artist. Let's do this.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Um, all right, so I don't want to take too much more of your time. There's a couple of things we like to wrap up with typically. This has been such a pleasure, and I want to thank you again. But
Of course.
the world being the way that it is, the challenges we're all facing as a society, community is something that I keep coming back to. I keep leaning into community, trying to find it, foster it where I can. What does community look like for you right now in your life?
Community looks like support, like people it right now, especially with musicians and independent musicians, we need each other more than ever,
Mm,
because the algorithm is cruel. The world is distracting and there's so little room right now for us to do what we do. I mean, the economy is hard, and so people aren't, super able to get out and see shows like they used to. And I mean, most people are pretty traumatized right now, and it's just so much easier to sit home and scroll on your phone.
hmm
But music is the thing that can bring us all together, and it can take us away from the things that feel hurtful to us in the moment. And I think that as far as community goes, what that looks like is other artists sharing each other's stuff.
hmm
Like I follow a bunch of artists that I know here in Nashville on TikTok. Like I follow Hannah Juanita and Eliza Thorne and Maggie Rose and all these girls that I know from here. And every time one of their videos, one of their TikToks comes up on my feed, I automatically, without even thinking about it, hit repost. I share all of their stuff. I try to comment on everyone. We need to be doing that for each other. And fans, music fans that are engaged, um, you know, they need to be creating community with their friends and their family. If you're into an independent artist, tell people about it. Go out and
hmm
preach the gospel about that indie artist that's working their butt off out here making TikToks, and not only like buy music, but go support them on the DSPs, on Spotify. Like I did a post recently where I said, if you want your favorite indie artist to come to your town, like I get people in my comment threads all the time, like come to Akron or, come to Nebraska. And if you want that, then the best way to help get that artist on that stage in your town where you can see them and where we can all enjoy music together in that wonderful moment where we can forget about our lives, you have to do those things. Like you got to buy their record. You got to go on Spotify and follow them and put their song or their songs in a playlist and share it and do that, because the people that can put us on those stages, look at that number. They go, that's the first place they go. Talent buyers, booking agents, the first place they go to evaluate whether or not they want to work with an artist or whether that artist comes and plays their venue. They go and look at that Spotify monthly listener follower. And as much as we all hate it, that's reality. So I think that community means supporting each other, like, and in exchange, like if fans are doing that, if they're going out of their way to spread the word, then, I owe it to my fans to meet with them after the show, to sign their albums, to talk to them about their lives, to hear their trauma stories, to share whatever they've sent me that they want shared, things like that. Like it's all about, right now especially, it's all about us interacting with each other, sharing each other's stories, art, and lifting each other up, because nobody's coming. We've got to lift each other up.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for all of this, India. We've ended on what you're getting down on. That was such a wonderful answer. I'm so grateful for it. But what we're getting down on, so that's the art that has you inspired at the moment. It could be, speaking of indie artists, it could be somebody you're listening to lately. It could be a painting you saw. It could be a TV show you're watching.
What's inspiring me the most at the moment is seeing artists like Hannah Juanita being their own manager, their own booking agent, and just absolutely crushing it. Like I am in awe of her right now, because I mean, not only is her music great, she does great honky tonk music and she's a good writer, and but she also, like, she books her own European tour, and artists like Summer Dean. Summer Dean is another artist from Texas that is doing the same thing. And Summer, one of the most inspiring things about Summer to me is she was like me. Like she had a job. She was a teacher like you, and she has decided to pursue music full time. And she's not 25 years old. She's got a head halfway full of gray hair, and she's lived a life, and she's not ashamed that people know that. And she is killing it. Like she just made her Opry debut last year, and she's been on the Opry like twice since then. And that, like, seeing her make her Opry debut, I don't even know Summer, like, personally, but I cried. I wept when I saw her video of her making her Opry debut, because she is out there doing it. And she's not letting the narrative, like the ageist narratives, or the, oh, you had this job, so you can't be a star. None of those narratives are controlling her. And she is soaring. So that's what's inspiring me.
That's awesome. What a pleasure. Thank you so much. This whole thing has been so wonderful. Your record, Villain Era, is one of my favorites, like I said, of the last year. I've been wearing it out. It's absolutely, it's been on heavy rotation in my car and at home. And I'm just really thankful for your time and energy. India, thank you so much.
I'm thankful for your time and energy too. Thank you for taking the time to have me on, and for all you're doing to promote artists. And I'm so glad that this album is resonating with you and that you love it. It makes me happy.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, and good luck with your EP.
Thank you. I'm excited. First thing will be out by the end of the month. And then, September is what I'm shooting for. I'll get a clear date once the masters come back. So fired up.
Great. That's really exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. All righty. Bye.
Bye.
India Ramey, y'all. Thank you so much, India. Thank all of you for listening. IndiaRamey.com for all things India. MarinadePodcast.com for all things the Marinade. Follow us on the socials, y'all. Subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. Tell a friend about the show. These are all free ways to support the Marinade. Go do that right now while you're listening, please. It makes a big difference for us and costs so little of your time and energy. I want you to right now think about somebody who makes stuff. It could be anything. It could be that they crochet. It could be that they're a songwriter. It could be that they dabble in watercolors. We all have creative outlets, and sometimes we don't think of them as creative. And I hear people say all the time, I don't have an ounce of creativity in me or some such bullshit. And it's not true. We all have creativity in us, and we all do things to scratch that creative itch. Think about somebody in your life who is creative and send them a link to the show right now. If you really like what we're doing on this Marinade thing, please consider joining our Patreon community or our Substack, okay? For just a few bucks a month, you can get exclusive content like our show Jason's Journey, where I talk about the moments that shape my creative life and provide a window into the process of making the Marinade. I'm really leaning into this, y'all. I am going to start posting on Substack every day pretty much. Same thing on Patreon. All of the content that you can find on Patreon will also be posted on Substack. So whichever platform you prefer, you can get a little more Marinade. And what I'm going to do is kind of like calendar it out and sort of give you consistency with it, right? So on Mondays, I'm going to post my favorite albums of the year, which is a series I started a couple weeks ago. A week ago, and you'll get the second installment as this episode is released. Tuesday, I'll do a new Jason's Journey. I have a lot going on creatively right now, and am basically treating this as my full-time job. So I have a lot to talk about. Wednesday, I'm going to do a review of the week. So that could be an album, I don't know, a show I went to, a film, a book, just some sort of longer form review of some piece of art. And I may flip Tuesday and Wednesday on those things. If you have any feedback on that, let me know. And then Thursday, I'm going to share Marinade moments. So throwbacks. Basically, I'm going to treat it like a throwback to discussing old episodes, discussing shows I've been to over the years, things like that. Friday, I will talk about new album releases. So and single releases, but especially albums who release something that I'm fired up about, and I'll do just a little blurb on each one, kind of short essay style almost on each one. So that's the plan for the Substack and the Patreon going forward. So you're getting a lot of value out of it, and it's also a good way to connect with like-minded folks. I'm having fun with it. It is it's a lot of work, but it's really fun work. So come on over there. It doesn't cost much, and it means a huge, huge deal to me. If you want to support the show financially, but you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription, or you're not interested in all that extra stuff, that's fine. You can Venmo or PayPal us. It's just at the Marinade. Everything makes a huge difference, y'all. I've got a lot of irons in the fire, including my upcoming album. So if you could help, I'd really appreciate it. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to the folks at Western Grunge Tape Deck. Libby, who has become a friend of mine and is a wonderful interviewer, had me on the show to talk about the Marinade and talk about my forthcoming record. I was listening to it again yesterday. It came out just a couple of days, or it came out yesterday on Saturday. I'm recording this on Sunday, the 16th of August. Now, I was re-listening to our conversation, and it was so much fun because I'm just so grateful for Libby. She's such an easy person to talk to and so smart, and I think the interview turned out great. So check it out if you want to hear it a little bit more. I get to talk about some things on there that I don't necessarily talk about on my show, right? Because my show is not always about me. It's about my guest, and I make those connections, but I try to keep it to, the focus on the guest. Well, in this case, I was the guest. So if you want to hear me ramble a little bit about some really cool stuff happening in my life and sort of how we got here and how we ended up with a record of my original tunes, check out the Western Grunge Tape Deck. Also, just subscribe to them anyway. They're doing really cool work. and you'll get introduced to new artists every week. So check it out. And thank you, Libby, for having me. I know you're listening. I appreciate you. Thank you to all of you for listening. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for spreading the word about the Marinade. And until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.